Okay, most runners think the long run is just about time on your feet in zone 2. But if you want to run 100 kilometers at pace or race a fast marathon off the back of your ultra training, then your long runs can't be random. They have to serve a purpose. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through 3 key long runs that got me ready to run 100K. They are brutally effective, but they're also surprisingly adaptable for marathon runners. So whether you're training for your first ultra marathon or building towards a full marathon, or you just wanna run longer with more purpose, this is your blueprint. I'm Grantham, a coach and a professional ultra runner, and it took me 5 months to go from not being able to run for 500 meters to being able to run a sub 20-minute 5K. And at that point, I just thought, it's a case of training to be able to hold 4 minutes per kilometer or 6:26 per mile for a marathon. And then once I can do that, I can hold it for 100K. And that's essentially exactly what happened. And I ended up running 4 minutes and 1 second for the entire duration of the British Championships 100K and win the race. And I did that using long runs exactly like these, which are a big part of a bigger picture. The training week and the training schedule. And if you want to go considerably faster, whether you're training for a marathon, ultra marathon, or other distance, and you want professional guidance in order to get your work ethic and energy doing the right things consistently well, then get in contact by booking a call from the link in the description. So here are 3 specific long runs that I used in order to get ready to run 100K. And if I was training for Passatore 100K, I would use these sessions. If I was training for Comrades Marathon, I would use these specific long runs. And it's very easy to see how these are adaptable for the marathon. Long run number 1. Let's start with the simplest, but definitely not the easiest. And that is 30 miles or 50K at 100K pace. Now, to make this easy for you and so that you can adapt these to your own paces and your own goal times, I'll give you my paces for the marathon and for the 100K. My marathon time, 2 hours 21, is exactly 3 minutes and 20 seconds per kilometer. And it's great to work with that because there's 10 times 20 seconds within that. So when I'm talking about 10% quicker, then I'll do a lot of my intervals at 3 minutes per kilometer. When I'm talking about plus 10%, that's 340 per kilometer, 20 seconds slower than 320. And when I'm talking about plus 20% slower, I'm talking about 4 minutes per kilometer, which is my 100K pace. So this run for me would be a 3 hour and 20-minute run, so a lot of volume at exactly 100K pace. And the way that I would attack it, and slight difference as to the way many runners attack their long run, is I would want to be doing a good warm-up. So I'd want to be warming up in the same way that I'm going to warm up before the 100K. So it's not a great amount of time or distance, but it gets me ready so I'm not shocked in those first couple of kilometers to be running 4 minutes per kilometer pace or 6:26 per mile. And what we're doing there is building, again, a lot of volume, a lot of time, 3 hours and 20 minutes at exactly the pace we want to hold for 100K, and we're doing it on fatigued legs. So we're doing it on those trained legs. There's no taper towards this run. It's about getting the body conditioned, the physical body conditioned, ready to run for that distance, getting your fueling right, your nutrition strategy, as well as mentally preparing your body to run for long distances at the pace that you're gonna run for 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, depending on what your 100K time is. And for me, this run is all about doing that warm-up, but then very quickly getting into your rhythm and using as little energy as possible to move over the ground at exactly that target race pace. And if you think about it, that's exactly what we're aiming for. Exactly the same with the marathon. We're trying to build time at race pace, 100K pace in this instant, but marathon pace also at getting comfortable at moving over the ground at race pace, so it feels extremely efficient, and come race day, it's second nature for as long of the race as possible. The difference between the 100K and the marathon is because of that extra distance, nearly 2.5 times a marathon, you got to wait on that handbrake for longer in the race. So it's got to feel comfortable for ideally 75 to 80K. And then the race really starts. And that means that runs like this, 50K at 100K pace, it's that durability that you want and that conditioning, getting comfortable and efficient and moving over the ground at exactly race pace. Long run 2. Now, this will separate the men from the boys. It's a tough run and it's something you need to build up to, and it's something that you can make as hard or as easy as you want. like a lot of stuff in running. If you want to run 6 times a kilometer, that can be as hard or as easy as you want it to be. And so you can never complain that the workout is too easy. It's all about how you attack it and the intensity. So run number 2 is a 30-mile progression run. And we're just gonna do 10 miles, 10 miles, and 10 miles. Now, here's the thing. This can be a brilliant run, whether you're training for 100K or a marathon. And it's a marathon run, marathon-specific run that I've used plenty of times before, and it works tremendously. And the training effect that you're gonna get from it is all to do with pacing. So the way that I would structure this is 10 miles at 100K pace. So 10 miles at 4 minutes per kilometer or 6:26 per mile. And again, for that not to be a shock in the first couple of miles, you've got to do a good warm up. And you've got to get your gel strategy or your sports drink strategy working for you immediately from the go. And I would want that first 10 miles naturally to feel quite easy. You're going to be running 10 miles at 100K pace. That should feel very comfortable for you because you're aiming to run 62 miles or 100K at that pace. And then as I told you at the start of the video, my 100K pace, 4 minutes per kilometer, marathon pace, 3:20 per kilometer. In between that, so 10% slower than marathon pace and 10% quicker almost than 100K pace. Right in between is 3:40 per kilometer. So that middle 10 miles, I'd be running at 3:40 per kilometer. Now then it starts to get, okay, I need to focus. And you will have felt that in the middle part or between 20K and 30K or 12 miles and 18 miles where, oh, okay, all of a sudden the perceived effort is going up for the same pace as what I was doing in the beginning, but I'm not as fresh. And this is what that builds, that focused ability to hold pace. So I'm holding 10 miles at 3:40 per kilometer. And then the next 10 miles, the final 10 miles, is marathon pace. So 3:20 per kilometer for 10 miles. Now, of course, that's a much harder run than that first run of 50K or 30 miles at 100K pace. We're going significantly faster in that second half. And the purpose there is to start off steady and make that 100K pace feel as easy as possible because we're going on to a next segment that's harder of 3:40 per kilometer. And then that final marathon pace at 3:20 per kilometer, significantly harder than that first 10 miles. And at the same time, we've already done 20 miles. So you can imagine how that feeds in really nicely as an over distance run for marathon training. And this is why a lot of ultramarathon runners are able to very quickly run a decent marathon. Of course they are, because they've already got the endurance and they're not intimidated by the distance, so they can race the entire 26 miles or 42K. But what they're also good at is playing around with that pace. So if they can run 100K at 4 minutes pace or 5 minutes per kilometer pace, 8 minutes per mile, they know they can do that for 7-8 hours. So imagine what they can do when they've got to go all out for 2 hours 40 to 3 hours. And then it's a task of, okay, what can we sustain for the marathon? Because arguably, and I would think this for sure, an all-out marathon is more difficult than an all-out 100K. And I know that will sound strange to hear if you've not ran for nearly 2.5 times the distance for 100K, but if you can imagine that most of your time is spent in zone 2 for that 100K, and then after 60 to 80K, you're getting into zone 3, zone 4, and then finishing it off with everything you've got. In a marathon, it's pretty much you're on the limit from the go. And again, just a caveat there and something to understand, you've also got to pace a marathon. Clearly, 26 miles, 42K, you got to respect that distance, but you know the threshold that you can be at in order to execute the entire distance at the fastest pace that you can, and that's what you're training for. So, starting at 100K pace, moving into a slight progression, and then bringing it home with controlled aggression at marathon pace. And then what you've got to add in at the end of that progression run, because you've been running significant distance, 10 miles at marathon pace, is you want to cool down properly. And you want to give yourself 2, 3, 4 miles, gradually let the heart rate get back into zone 2, and then below that into walking around heart rate. And what you're doing there is clearing the lactate, and so your recovery is accelerating before you've even finished the run. And it's extremely important for consistency and for that fast recovery, because remember, we're in training. And so no matter how big the run, we've gradually got to this point where we can handle that distance, and it's within ourselves, But no matter how big the run, we've got to be ready for the following Wednesday in order to hit those intervals again, because it's the consistency of the big sessions over the weeks and months. That's what's going to move us forward to get to the start line of a 100K or a marathon ready to rock. Long run number 3. So finally, the most fun run of the 3 runs. Also, we're going to burn through glycogen really quick. And so you've got to have that nutrition working for you, because this run is going to teach you just how important that is, because we're going to shred through glycogen much faster than we're intending to on race day. So all we're going to do is 30 miles fartlek. Fartlek is the Swedish word for speed play, and it's a fun session to do. We're going to play with the speed. And what that would look like for me is I want to do 2 miles at marathon pace and then 1 mile at 100K pace. So that's 2 miles at 320 per kilometer pace for me, and then 1 mile off at 4 minutes per kilometer at 100K pace. And we're going to repeat that 10 times. So you're essentially doing 10 sets of 2 miles, 1 mile, so 30 miles in total. And again, because we're starting at marathon pace, because you're starting quite quick, good warm up, get your body ready, primed, so you can get the absolute most out of the session. Again, great marathon session. 20 miles at marathon pace, 10 miles at 100K pace. And what we're doing psychologically, but we're also conditioning our body for this, is the 100K pace is becoming our recovery pace. And that's the real beauty of this session. And so marathon pace is on 320 per kilometer, and then slowing down 20%, 4 minutes per kilometer is my recovery pace. If I could pick one session that allowed me to go on and hold 4 minutes per kilometer for 6 hours and 40 minutes or 6 hours and 42 minutes, it would be this session. Because what it does for you is allow you to make that 100K pace feel easy for very, very long within the race. So you get to 60, 70, 80K, then the race begins. And although it sounds like a long way, you only have to dig in for 20K. Up until that point, it's just been a game of carbohydrate intake, hydration, salt. And it's not like you're zoning out and just going into your own thoughts. It's an ongoing MOT check, like, is the body good? Is there anything tightening up? Is there anything about to cramp? Do I need to take in more salt, more water, etc.? And exactly like the marathon, to be on the limit for that period of time and to get to a point where you can really drop the hammer is much more of a controlled effort, because you're in, as I said before, you're in zone 2. And so you're burning primarily through fat as opposed to glycogen. And so when you're taking in those gels, you're just topping up. And a run like this, 2 miles on, 1 mile off, is burning through that glycogen quicker. And so it's teaching you the importance of taking that carbohydrate, taking those gels on a regular basis so that you can manage the run. Building that tolerance to changing up paces, changing up gears whilst fatigued is a really powerful tool to have. And what it does is once you slip back into, okay, smooth, same pace, economical, feels very easy. So how do you adapt those runs, 30-mile long runs, to your marathon run? Now, there's an argument, and it's really worked well for me to go over distance and to be preparing always for ultramarathon. And I've always looked at running and training like a little bit like a boxer who at any moment can get called up to fight. So I want to be fit all the time, and I want to be 2-3 weeks off picking a race and being able to put something together in order to get something from that race. But you don't have to go that far. And so if you were to adapt those 3 runs, the first run could be a half marathon at marathon pace. And it's a great workout. And you've got to ask yourself, if you can't manage that workout, how am I going to manage the full distance of a marathon at marathon pace if I can't do it for half? The second run could be half that distance, so 15-mile progression run. And you're starting at 20% slower than marathon pace, middle part 10% slower than marathon pace, finishing with 5 miles at marathon pace. Great workout. And the third run, again, can be half the distance of 15 miles, 2 miles on, 1 mile off. And again, you can make that fartlek run, 15 miles fartlek, as easy or as hard as you want it to be. If your goal is to finish 100K strong or to run your fastest marathon, these are the long runs, and adaptations of these long runs are exactly the runs that move the needle. You've got to run with intent and not just log miles. And if you're looking for specific marathon long runs or ways to adapt your current marathon long run to make it better, these videos are for you.